Welcome everyone to the second workshop of a series. The third workshop will be tomorrow, I believe. And thank you for those who attended previously, and I believe this is going to be enjoyable for everyone. If you have questions, you can ask them in the chat, preferably, but if you log in with your screen, if you could just mute yourself while the speakers are talking, thank you very much, and I look forward to everyone enjoying themselves.
Thank you so much, Mushamisi. And my apologies to everybody. I don't know what happened. I fought with the thing for like 10 minutes. That is the dark side of technology. But we are here to continue with this series that Angela and I have called Deep Learning Through Teamwork. Yesterday, we talked about the roles of working as a team. And today we're going to talk about peer assessment, and hopefully, God willing, tomorrow we'll be sharing reflective feedback.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on the place where you are. My name is Angela Romay. I am a professor at Catholic University teaching English in La Paz, Bolivia. I have a degree in linguistics. Currently, I am working on my thesis for my master's degree, focused on teaching English to blind people. This is one of my main interests, to teach English to disabled people.
And I am Beatriz Erazo, also from La Paz, Bolivia. Currently, I am teaching applied linguistics and oral and written communication at Mayor de San Andres University, one of the biggest universities in the country. I hold a master's degree program in teaching English to speakers of other languages. I'm a teacher trainer, and one of my main goals is to promote autonomy, self-motivation, and social responsibility among uh, my students. And that's why we are here today with Angela.
Well, to begin, as Beatriz said, this is part of a series. And yesterday we started with the first one, and now we will focus on peer assessment, the art of learning from others, the responsibility to help others to learn. This is the main concern that we have in this part. So let's begin.
Today we are going to discuss definitions between evaluation and assessment, and also we would like to know what you understand by peer assessment and feedback. Later on, we are going to share 5 strategies regarding peer assessment and feedback that is supposed to be worked among students. We are going to discuss the use of emojis, prizes and awards, flowers and tomatoes, how to use rubrics and negotiate meaning, and finally, how to use reflective questions to peer assess and give feedback. Let's begin.
To start, we would like you to reflect on the quote you are observing on the screen, which is written by Miranda Mitchell. Peer assessment allows students to make judgments about others' work while reflecting on their own. What this quote means? It means that peer assessment involves the students taking the responsibility to evaluate or for assessing the works of the others. When we talk about the responsibility, we have to assume they have to be really aware of the things that they are doing, the role that they are implying, that they are implying in order to evaluate and assess the other works. That's really important in this part. So based on that, we can continue on the second part. We would like to have your participation now. Working on these two terms, evaluation or assessment, are they the same? Is there any difference? For this part, we would like to have your participation, as I repeat again, through a link that Beatriz will send to the chat box. It's a link on Mentimeter. So we want you to click there. You have 3 options here. Clicking on the Mentimeter, on the link that you have on the chat box, you have the QR code as well. And if you have the application of Mentimeter, you can write the code there. What do we want you to do? We would like you to write 3 words related to the first term, that is evaluation. Could you
So I'm
participate,
going to
please?
repeat what Angela said. You can use the QR code, or if you have the application, use the code that you have here, or use the link that I have shared with you.
So we would like you to type 3 words related to this term, which is evaluation. So waiting for your words. We will give them 2 minutes, right, Beatriz?
Yep.
Is that okay? Yep. So let's start. We would like you to write there. Okay, what can you do? How are you? Where are you? Okay. We want you to define the word evaluation.
So we're going to give them like 1 more minute and 30 more seconds. If you have the application, the code also is on the top. And you can find the link in the chat.
If you are facing some troubles, let us know as well. Okay, see how you do something. All right. Interesting.
1 more minute.
Okay.
So maybe you can start giving some analysis to this, Angelita.
All right. So based on the words that you have written, we can say that evaluation is the act of passing judgment. The main purpose of evaluation is to focus on the summative formation, on the summative way. And in this part, we are focusing on the product. So what do we mean with that, with the product? Given an example in our class, we can refer to the final exam we have in our classes. That's the evaluation, focusing on the product and the what I said before, the summative thing, the summative purpose that we have with the evaluation. Now,
it's very interesting, Angelita, it's very interesting that here somebody has shared the word schooling, which is closely related to evaluation.
Yeah.
And we may go to...
We had other words, right? That maybe after the time we gave them, they started writing. If you're facing some troubles, let us know as well, because it can happen that if you cannot write on the Mentimeter, you can write on the chat box as well. We can give you that option if it's difficult for you to work on Mentimeter. Now, please, we would like you to define the word assessment. Type words there. There are 3 words that you have to type there. Waiting for your words. Let's give you 2 minutes. Come on, we want to see your participation. We have for the ones who are joining, we have the link there. So maybe we can share it again for the ones who are joining.
Sure.
I can help you on that. It's there.
It's there again.
Yeah.
Or that's the QR code in case.
Hi, Aurora. Welcome
All right.
to our presentation.
So 1 more minute.
Good. Level achieved. What do you know? Grades. Check your competence.
Let's give like 25 more seconds, okay?
All right. It's really important to know what the difference, the difference that we can have between evaluation and assessment for this peer assessment that we are going to explain with the strategies that we will focus on as well. Let me know when the time is over in order for me to give a kind of summary.
Right about now.
All right.
Right about now.
Perfect. So talking about assessment based on the words that you have written, we can say that this is the process of reviewing, reusing, collecting data in order to improve the current performance. In the part of assessment, the main purpose is formative. So, and the part that we have to focus on assessment is the process. It's different. So in this part, we can mention the most important difference between evaluation and assessment. Evaluation is summative, right? and it's product oriented, while assessment is the process, and is we are talking about the formative way, and this is the process, or is process oriented. To give you an example what assessment can involve in our classes, we can think about the activities we usually do, the daily activities we have, the class performance we have. So we can continue working on this part.
So based on what Angela said, we are going to make a differentiation during this workshop. For us, when we use the word evaluation, is going to refer to the summative assessment. As she said, the final product, the scores, and what somebody shared is the schooling activity. But when we say assessment in this workshop, we are going to refer to formative assessment. The purpose of formative assessment is to help students to improve, to get better. And here we have a very nice example. It says, when the cook tastes the soup, that's formative assessment. So I want you to imagine that you are in a kitchen and you are preparing the soup, and the chef, the main chef, the boss in the kitchen comes and tastes your soup. He or she will tell you maybe there's too much salt, or maybe some other spices are needed. So you are going to improve the flavor of your soup. But when the customer, the client tastes the soup, that's summative assessment, because he or she will decide if he or she likes it or not. And that's definite. So we are going to understand in this workshop that assessment refers to that process in which you are going to gather evidence to help your students improve. In that term, from that point of view, formative assessment is understood also as assessment for learning. When you assess for learning, you gather information to make decisions to adapt your teaching, to make modifications to your lesson plan, to your syllabus, to attend the needs, expectations, and wishes of your students. And you are going to help them achieve the learning objectives that you have prepared for them. Look at this small example that we have here in our picture. Check that saying to your dog, you are a bad dog. It's just giving them a summative assessment, an evaluation. We are giving a judgment. But if we teach our dog not to pee on the floor, not to play with the rag, not to chew our shoes, and we encourage the positive behavior, then we are giving a assessment for learning, because that dog is going to learn what we want him to do, and what we don't want him to do. So we are going to assess for learning. So please keep that in mind, that during this workshop, when we talk about assessment, we're talking about the formative assessment for learning.
And now, keeping on work on the part of definitions, we would like you to tell us, from your perspective, what feedback is and what peer assessment is. So we will follow the same procedure we did before, and we would like to have your participation as well, sharing that link. And now we would like you to write a sentence. From your perspective, what is feedback? And we have the three ways to write there through the link that Beatriz will share. You have the QR code if you have a camera in order to scan the QR code you have there, or the Mentimeter code if you have the application. So there are three
That
ways.
is on the top of the screen.
Yep. And in case it's really, really difficult, you can write on the chat box if you're facing some troubles as well. We would like you to tell us, what is feedback from your perspective?
Define it.
Mm-hmm. Let's wait for them 2 minutes.
Yes.
They are kind of shy today. it seems that Laurel is writing. She seems really concentrated writing.
Okay, like one more minute. Let's hope somebody is going to send his or her definition.
Okay, congratulating the strengths and advice about weaknesses. Okay, it helps me to see how my students are doing. We have telling the students about what they have achieved, what is positive about their work, and how they could improve. Okay, awesome.
So there are like 15 more seconds, Angelita.
Okay.
So maybe you can continue.
All right. So I think that you are right on the definitions that you are given. And maybe to sum up all the ideas that you have, we can say that feedback is the act of communication process, right? Through which learners enter to dialogues related to performance. So what they do is to start maybe assessing the works of the others in order to improve the current performance. So that's the communication process we are referring to. Now, what about peer assessment? We would like you to write a definition, define peer assessment. From your perspective as well, how you understand peer assessment. Please wait for your participation 2 minutes. We would like you to participate as well, defining the peer assessment. Thank you for the ones who are writing. Jackie's there, Aurora. We are starting with these definitions in order to make sure if we understand the terms evaluation, assessment, peer assessment, and feedback, in order to show you the strategies we can use to give that feedback to our students.
So like 30 more seconds. Let's see if we can get some answers.
Okay.
So maybe you can continue, Angela.
All right, here we have, okay, thank you so much. Students providing feedback to their classmates without criticism, focusing on the positive. Peer assessment is a pair of collaborative work where workshops and strengths are identified and when a pair of the students have the chance to share their knowledge. I think that I would just sum up this part, okay, because peer assessment is defined as students providing feedback, as you said, feedback to each other on their works. So what is the purpose of giving that, of providing that feedback? Telling them what they did right, what they did wrong to improve the performance. This is the main part of peer assessment. And why do we have to work on peer assessment? Because it empowers our students to take the responsibility for the things that they are doing and they are working on their own learning. So I think that taking that responsibility and working on their own learning are the key words for this part of peer assessment. Now, we are going to share some strategies in order to combine both peer assessment and feedback, and we would like you to enjoy these strategies in order to use in your classes. One of the first strategies that we will mention is based on the previous workshop we had yesterday, which was related to chain story. Yesterday, in order you to the ones who were in our workshop, we can remember that yesterday we worked on a written activity related to chain story, where students being assigned roles such as monitor, timekeeper, secretary, and spokesperson were working together on writing a story. Now, just to refresh our memory, we had the roles there. like monitor controlling, the timekeeper controlling the time, the secretary editing the work that they had done, and the spokesperson reporting what were the difficulties they were facing with the activity. But after that, when the work is done, when the story is there, what do we have to continue? We have to continue on giving feedback to that chain story. And one of the strategies that we want to suggest is this one, traffic light strategy. When we are talking about traffic light strategy, we are talking about red, yellow, and green color, as Beatriz will mention now. Some strategies that we can focus on that.
Yes, as Angela said, the title, the name of this strategy is called the traffic light because it recalls the three colors of the traffic light. I'm going to give you a demonstration. Students are working in teams. They had to create a story using adjectives and antonyms. And they were told that they had to use, they have to have a beginning, a middle, and an ending in their story. So they have prepared their stories. They are ready to present or share the stories either in written way or maybe orally. And you are going to tell the class that they have to pay attention to what the classmates are saying or what the classmates have written. You are going to ask them to pay attention if they have used the adjective and the antonym appropriately, if they used the correct grammar tenses, past at the beginning, present in the end, and if the story was complete. So I'm going to give you a demonstration. I hope you can see my picture. This is me. When we shift from teaching face-to-face to teach online because of the pandemic, I had to teach from home. And you know, at home I have the kitchen and I have the pantry and I have the refrigerator. So I ate a lot and I became quite heavy. But the doctor told me that that was not good for me. That was not good for my health. So I started doing some exercises. I began a diet, and now I am thin, happy and thin. So I was heavy, and now I am thin. So please use the chat box and tell me in the chat box, did I use the adjective and opposite appropriately? If you think I did so, give me a green face. If I did not that well, give me a yellow face. And if I failed miserably, give me a red face. I'm just joking, but it's for terms. So what about like 30 seconds maybe that you can give me a green face, a yellow face, or a red face, please? Angelita, you tell me.
All right, yes.
And this is me, just in case.
So the purpose of the activity was her to use the adjective. So based on the story, let's give some feedback using the
10 more
traffic
seconds.
light strategy. Maybe you
Are
can
you
find a happy face. Yes, nobody is giving you any kind of feedback. If you don't want to write, maybe you can say red, yellow, or green if you are not finding the exactly face with that color.
okay?
It might be.
So maybe we should continue. This is
Green.
not the only thing that you can do with this strategy. You can also focus on maybe pronunciation. So you are going to instruct your students to pay attention to the pronunciation. If it was intelligible, students really understood everything their classmates were saying. You can include even fluency. You can focus on grammar as well. Tell them if they have used complete sentences, for example, if this is a beginner course. The points that you are going to ask your students to focus their feedback on are going to be very specific, and give them examples of what they are going to focus on. Also, ask them to elaborate their answers, why they are telling you or they are telling their classmates that they are giving them a green face. They have to give reasons, or a yellow face. They have to give reasons. They have to be able to elaborate. If you're doing this for the first time with like real beginners, let them use the L1. There's no problem if the teacher and the students share the same L1. Or give them STEM sentences so they can produce that feedback. So that is one of the strategies that we wanted to share with you. A second strategy that we would like to share with you is offering awards, giving prizes for your students. And again, this could be a story, this could be something that they wrote and they are going to share. Yesterday, we mentioned that after students created your chain stories using an assigned topic or a story dice, they can use Padlets to publish their work, or they can create posters if you are teaching on site, and then students can go around and reading the posters. And then you are going to tell them, okay, so we are going to use superlatives and you are going to give an award. Now, if you are in class, I usually bring some candy. So there's going to be like this physical gift that they are going to receive. Or if you're teaching online, you can give them, for example, badges or certificates. Let's have a small explanation here. So maybe somebody could help us. We are going to focus on two different suggestions, two different ideas on how to use these type of feedback. What is a role play? Can anybody unmute himself or herself and maybe say what a role play is?
Laura, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you. A role play is when the students take on a character which isn't their own character and allows them to imagine being another person. And then they enter into some kind of a situation.
Yes, very good. Excellent. Yes, that is a role play. And usually we assign role plays from real life situations. A mini play, it's a little bit different in the way that instead of presenting the whole Midnight Summer of Shakespeare, they are just going to present a scene. Or students can create a small act, a fiction story, a fiction drama that they can act, right? So also they are going to present it in front of the class. Of course, for the role play and the mini play, there are functions that they have to use. There's certain vocabulary they have to use, and there's certain grammar that they have to use. So after the presentation, all the groups get together, and with the roles that we explained yesterday, so they are going to decide, for example, which was the funniest story presented, or if the main vocabulary point was phrasal verbs, who used the most phrasal verbs and in the correct way, or who presented the best mini play. You can decide any of the superlatives that students can use to give awards. And again, they have to explain, they have to elaborate. If they say, for example, oh, the mini play presented by Angela and Beatriz, we think that was the funniest. Why? Give reasons. So the group is going to get together, they're going to reach a conclusion, and they have to support the idea that is going to be presented by the spokesperson. Do not accept just, oh, they were the funniest, just because they were. Students need to have a reason for giving a prize, right? And also you can like go to less mistakes. Why? Because they used most of the time complete sentences, and they used appropriate tenses or everything. So that depends on you, the learning objectives, and the type of activity that you are holding.
Now, we can work on this another activity that is comics. So let's make a kind of break of those strategies that we mentioned before. And we can say that comics is a great way for motivating our students to write. We know that sometimes they can find like boring topics in their books, but if we work on comics, we can encourage them to write. And when they are writing on comics, we have like instant ideas. They use their creativity, imagination, and you can turn reluctant writers to ravenous writers. So the ones who want to write because they find comics really, really I don't know what we can say,
Funny.
really amazing to write, funny. They use a lot of words. They can use even the vocabulary that you have them. And in this way, for example, we can have one way that I work with my students, which is Fiction Edu. I love using comics in my classes, and I can find that I can mention that Fiction Edu is a free app. Of course, if you want to have the paid version, you have more options, but with the free version, you can work in a very great way. What would like you to do now with this? Well, I asked my student permission to present his comic here, I would like you to read this comic and give the award that you think, right? So maybe you can use the traffic light. Some students, I mean, some participants were having some trouble, some evaluating or giving the feedback with the colors. They said that it's not easy to change the color. So you can write, maybe using the traffic light strategy, you can write green, red, and yellow. Could you read please this comic and evaluate it and give your feedback or the award you think they may have?
And remember, you should give this an award using a superlative. So the prize for the funniest or the best or the most intelligible or even the most boring. You can even say that, but explain your answer, elaborate your answer. So
besides
what
that,
about like
sorry,
30 seconds? 30 seconds,
yes. Besides that, as Beatriz said, it's important to mention why you're giving that feedback in order then to improve and they can work on the current performance that they have, right? So in this case, for example, this writing. We would like you to read, please, and we will give you 30 seconds to give this award using the adjective, the superlatives that Beatriz mentioned as well.
Are we getting any awards, Angelita?
No, I think that they face some troubles.
Okay.
We don't have any awards yet, but yes, for example,
continue.
for the traffic light, they had some
We can
problems in
continue.
changing the colors of their faces. Okay.
So as Angela mentioned, asking your students to create comics is a nice way for them to write dialogues, to create stories. This one was created with Storyboard That. It's another application that you can use for free. Let's see if there's some answers for this one. You can type in the chat box after reading it. The prize for the funniest or the dumbest story or the cutest cat story goes to the one that you see here. What would you say? What prizes would you give to this other comic story used with Storyboard That? Let's give them 20 more seconds. Let's see if we can get some answers. Angelita, are we getting some answers?
No, not yet. So we would like you to
Okay, so maybe we
participate.
can
Oh, yes,
continue.
we have one. I can't see anything in your presentation, it says Lauren Hannah. Oh, what about the rest? Can you see the presentation? Yes, Lauren, can you see the presentation? Is that okay? No, either? Oh my God.
So
Maria
Laura,
Eugenia says that she...
may have to, you may need to reset your browser. It'll probably log you back in and it might allow you to see the presentation that way. Were you seeing it earlier?
Mushamisi, can you see it?
I can see the presentation, so it could just be
Okay.
with Laura. She just needs to reset and then she'll be able to see the presentation.
Okay, good to know now.
Okay, sorry, back in a minute.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's see if we can
we
give
have...
them like 20 seconds to check that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because Maria Eugenia wrote that yes, she can see, and Jackie
so
said
Jackie
that
needs
you
to
just
zoom
zoom a little
like,
bit. Yeah.
increase the size, I guess, so easier viewing.
Oh.
Okay.
If you want to zoom
Continue,
on your, if you want to zoom on your web browser, the three dots, you can scroll down to zoom, and it allows you to increase the size of the page temporarily. Three dots at the top right.
All right, so maybe we can make a small summary of what we were talking about.
Okay, so
So
Laura,
we
you
made
can see now?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Now, yes, Laura can see. Thank you. Thank you.
Good, excellent. So we made a small parenthesis to talk about comics, and we wanted to use examples of comics that our students did during our classes. So you can use this other type of feedback and peer assessment strategy, which is to give them prizes or awards. We said that you can give them a prize using superlatives, but always the students have to say, okay, this is the funniest for this and that reason. You can give them badges or certificates if you're teaching online, or you can bring candy to your on-site classes and deliver the candy to the winners. That is the other strategy that we had for you. And there's another one that we love to use when students have to give small presentations or maybe speeches. Sometimes we ask them to prepare a short speech for 1 minute, or even to record the video in which they are speaking for 1 minute or 30 minutes. Angela, in her classes, enjoys asking their students to record their voice, and then people can, the rest of the students can listen to what they have recorded, or they can watch the video. This comes from my personal experiences in the karaoke, right? So when you go to karaoke and you sing very nicely, people give you flowers and they congratulate you and they say that was really beautiful, that you sounded like a professional. But if you sing like me, so they prepared a special rotten tomatoes and throw it directly to my face. So of course in classes you are not going to allow that to bring real rotten tomatoes, but that is the principle of this type of feedback strategy.
Now, working and going back to our previous session as well, we can mention the part of the story dice. And you can see that yesterday we were working on a chain story that was reading activity using the images that you have there. And now, as Beatriz mentioned, I love working on making my students record their voices, because when we have a lot of students in classes, we can add the chance to have all of them giving the feedback for their oral presentation or something related to a story that they have. So recording, then we can give some feedback to them. And as Beatriz mentioned, and it's really nice strategy, flowers and tomatoes in a karaoke that's coming from that, we can use some sentence themes based on, in order to give feedback regarding the story that they have recorded. So now, talking about the sentence themes, what we would like you to do? You will listen to two stories and you will give flowers and tomatoes or tomatoes, depending on the feedback you can give them. And here we have the sentence themes. If you think that they deserve flowers, you can write on the chat box, I heard, I like that because, and you can mention why you like that, that uh, that recording, if we can say that, or that story based on the images that you have there. Or on the other hand, if you dislike it, you can use this sentence theme, I heard, I think my classmate meant. What is important to mention here is that sometimes we don't have to be like, it's bad, it's good. We have to give some feedback based on what we're hearing in order to make a constructive feedback to them and they can improve. So we always mention that the current performance can be better if we give them a good feedback so that they can improve this part. So
Let's
I
begin.
think that let's begin with the first. Let's
Listen,
give the
please.
feedback. Listen, I will tell you if it's working.
It is really fantastic because I was with my two dogs, my two animals, my dog and my cat. Your names are Tommy and Tom. It was very good because I was listening to music. I like it a lot.
So please use the chat box and give flowers and or tomatoes to that small piece of recording. Use the sentence stems.
Now remember that the student had to use the pictures there. And do you think that that she used the pictures so that she deserved flowers, that she deserved tomatoes? What
Okay,
do you
15
think?
more seconds.
All right, yes.
Are we getting any flowers or tomatoes?
No, we don't have anything. We have neither flowers nor tomatoes yet.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we can summarize this. And as Angela said, you are supposed to use these sentence stems. And students can pay attention to something that they consider positive and that's what they like, and they have to elaborate on their answer. Or something that they believe it was not exactly the best thing to say, or maybe they did not like it, and they also have to provide a potential correction, a potential solution to that problem. Here we had another version of it. Maybe we can listen to it and you would like to give some feedback. Let's see if it happens.
When I was a kid, I had my dog, Charlie, and my cat, Misha, and they were my best friends. I loved them a lot. We sang songs together. They really loved when I made paper airplanes. They chased them all over the patio. And sometimes I used to take my bicycle and imagine that it was a track, and they hitchhiked me so I could give them a hike. It was a nice thing to have them both in my life. Yeah, I loved my dog and my cat.
So just if you are wondering, the first recording was made by Angela in her own smartphone, and you can share it with your students. And the second one was done by using an app called Vocaroo, vocaroo.com. Are we having any flowers or tomatoes, or shall we continue?
I think that they have faced problems on hearing the first audio, so that's why one of the participants wrote that. Okay, now Jackie says, I heard your story. I like that because you are expressing yourself. Okay. Flowers, Jackie. Okay, so you deserve flowers.
Okay,
Flowers, Maria Eugenia said.
thank you. So let's continue.
Thank you so much.
Another feedback, a strategy that you can use is using rubrics. I know that using rubrics is not new. There are three important points that you have to consider here. Is that you have to create a rubric for each activity that students are going to work on. So if there is an oral presentation, you have to prepare an appropriate rubric, or if it's something about writing, or if it is something about fluency. So students have to have access to the rubric from the very beginning, and you have to explain the rubric, make yourself sure that they know what to do with it and what your expectations are, right? So yesterday, for example, that we talk about writing stories, you should have a writing rubric prepared in advance, and students have to go over it and to learn how to use it. But that's not the only point of using rubrics. The most important thing is that after students have read the piece, or after students have seen the presentation or the role play or the mini dialogue, they have to use the rubric and decide what was how well or how not so well the student or the students or the group or the team did. And then what you are going to do is to ask them to sit down together or create a breakout room in Zoom. So they are going to get together and they are going to explain their decisions. So if, for example, Angela and I wrote a chain story, yes, or we decided to share an anecdote, she is going to listen to my anecdote, and using the rubric, she's going to decide how well I did. And I'm going to do the same after listening to her. And we are going to sit down together, and she's going to explain her decisions to me, and I am going to explain my decisions to her. When there is this communication, then it's easier for Angela to improve, for me to improve. Also, you are giving the students the opportunity, again, to negotiate meaning, to communicate, to collaborate, and to keep in mind that the most important is helping the classmate. Another technique that I love using in my classes is asking my students to reflect on the experiences. So I have a small demonstration for you. In this class, students had to work on vocabulary, human body parts, idioms, and they had to share an anecdote. An anecdote is something that usually happens to the person, and it's a real story that happened to them or maybe to a relative. In this case, if you can see my picture, I am going to use this human body part idiom that it's break a leg. So you know that break a leg means good luck to an artist. Somebody told us before this presentation, Beatriz and Angela break a leg, so they wished us well. So when I was young and beautiful, 100 years ago, when I was in high school, I was part of a group of students that like to prepare plays to present in front of our classmates. We had been rehearsing this big play, and the day of our debut, the director came to encourage us and said, "You are going to do well. You have done a great job until now, so go and break a leg." When we were going to the main stage, one of my classes just fell down and literally he broke his leg. So the teachers came, the students came, the director came, and he said, "I wish you to break your leg," but it was not literal. It was just good luck. So what I want my students to do in their teams, that they are going to prepare the anecdotes on their own, and then in the group, they're going to share this story. Now, students are going to have these questions in advance, and they are going to tell the classmates, yes, you use the idiomatical phrase appropriately because I understood this, and that. And I felt interested, or I felt like confused because maybe the narration was not really good. And I liked the part of the end of the story. It was kind of funny. Or I didn't like it because you used some words that were not clear to me. Maybe you could ask your students to ask follow-up questions so they are going to understand the anecdote much better. Um, and maybe they can also suggest, you know what, if you are nervous, maybe you could breathe before you share your anecdote. Maybe you should not speak that slowly, or maybe you should speak a little bit slower because you are speaking too fast or something like that. So if you provide these questions to your students in advance, they are going to be prepared to respond to them after that. Usually I ask my students to do this when they are working in these small groups of 4. They work individually first, and they work as a team giving feedback. Also, you can do it with the general class online or on site when they share the anecdotes in front of the whole class. Sometimes the students do not like to speak in front of audience, so they can do it just in the small group.
Now, what about the key to success here? How we can all the strategies that we have that we have showed you how they can work. We have a keyword here: training them. It's really important for us as teachers to train our students to have this peer assessment in order to avoid this over evaluation that they can have. So we have to monitor their work, we have to model, we have to support them. And you can see the picture, is that what we are doing? At the beginning, it can be really, really hard for them to work on this peer assessment, to work on this feedback. But in the end, we can have great results because we can trust our students that they are working in an appropriate way, giving feedback to their peers. And that's really relevant because peer assessment, as we mentioned before, gives that feedback in order to improve the performance that we have. And if we don't teach our students how to work on peer assessment, we will have those problems of that they cannot be objective at all, right? They can say, oh, that's my friend, I will give them 100%. And so the evaluation, the assessment that we are giving them is not the real one. So in order to get the process that we want, we have to teach them, we have to monitor them in order to make them succeed in the activities we want. Besides that, we can mention that peer assessment can reduce our work. So in a way, it's a potential to reduce our work. Why? Because we give that responsibility to our students to evaluate each other, to work on that part of peer assessment that is really relevant. So in a way, we can mention that in the whole evaluation that we have in our courses, we can include peer assessment as a vital part in our class. What for? to give our students, not only teachers, the opportunity to assess themselves. And
I would like to add to that something that Angela has mentioned. There are several studies done with university students and high school students that demonstrate that when the teacher really trains her students to give appropriate feedback and has it clear, and students really embrace the idea of being socially responsible for their own learning and the learning of their classmates, the feedback that they can give is trustable. So they are going to be honest on what they are going to do. And Angela also mentioned, if you have 123 students as she had once when she was teaching at the law school, then if you teach your students to give feedback to each other, that is going to reduce your workload a lot. And that leads us to this. Learners need endless feedback more than they need endless teaching. Because students need to know what they have to continue, doing. So their English is going to be well all the time. They are going to learn about helping each other. It's not just teaching all the time in front of them, giving them grammar, teaching them functions. It's making them work and making themselves being accountable of their own learning experience. So what we would like to do now is, Angelita,
to unmute yourselves and evaluate this presentation, right?
assess.
So assess this presentation, sorry, okay? So now we would like you to unmute yourselves if you want to participate. We would like you to use the chat box as well, either chat box or we would like to have your participation actively through these questions that we will mention in order to assess our presentation. Now, the first question goes, what did you learn today? What did you learn?
So maybe somebody can unmute himself or herself, or maybe you can type in the chat box, what did you learn in this presentation?
If you want, you can unmute yourselves as well to tell us what you learned in this presentation.
Or we can go to the next question. It's how did you feel during this session?
So, sorry,
please,
Beatriz, I
somebody.
have the answer. I have the answer for
Okay.
the first one. Laura said the value of formative assessment. Definitely. All right.
Absolutely.
Now, the second question, please.
Now, this question, how did you feel? It's important that we address our students' feelings and our feelings as well. So asking them how they felt. Maybe they felt nervous or anxious because we were demanding too much from them, or bored because the activity was not challenging enough, or because their classmates were not listening to what they had to say. So addressing the feelings is important. What would be the next question? Or are there any answers?
Yes, we have another answer. Maria, the difference, okay, she has learned the difference between assessment and evaluation and how to communicate. And now for the second question, I felt good in this presentation because of the opportunities to participate. Thank you, Laurel. And happy, Jackie Flores said. Now, what about the third question? What did you like the most about it?
Angelita, considering the time that we have, maybe we just are going to mention that we would like you to reflect on the next 4 questions. What did you like the most about it? What did you dislike about it? What is your main takeaway? And what will you do with it in the future? If you could, please give us your answers through the chat box. We would really appreciate it if it's possible. And also, we would like to know if you have any questions that regarding any of the strategies that we shared with you today. Maybe it would be great to learn about that. You can unmute yourselves and ask your question, or maybe you can type your questions in the chat box. If there are any, maybe Mushamisi can help us with that if there are questions.
Yes. I will try to use more peer assessments. I like the ideas. Question: is there any app you use in order to provide badges?
Um, um, well, there are, I cannot remember them at heart right now, but just Google free badges online and you are going to access several badges. You can create your own badges as well. I usually create mine using cats because I love cats. So I create a picture and add those. They are not difficult to create. And there are some LMSs that already contain badges, such as Schoology, NeoLearning, Canvas. So you can use the badges that they already have them if you use those, right?
But as you
Yeah,
mentioned, creativity, right? So you can create your badges related to the
exactly.
things that identify yourselves. As Beatriz uses cats, I use dogs. So
Yeah.
you can create
So
something identifying yourselves as
the
well.
main objective here is encouraging students to talk to each other. Remember the 4 C's of the professionals of this century. They have to have the 4 C's, which are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. When you ask your students to give feedback, they are working collaboratively. They are using their communication skills in a way they are going to collaborate each other. And when they offer solutions to the problems they have, they are being creative and using their critical thinking skills. So,
Jackie Flores has a request. I would
yep.
like to have a longer session about this important issue.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
of course. We would love to do that. And I think this is my email address. I don't know if you can see it. I am going to type it in the chat box. And also this is the email address of Angela. So you can contact us. And it would be a pleasure for us to talk more about this. And we will invite you also to the next session in which we are going to talk a little bit more about reflective learning and feedback.
Mhm. And maybe to
I
conclude, because
think
we
that
don't
will
have enough
be,
time. Sorry, Beatriz. We have to keep in mind that our students must be part of our class. So they are essential in our class for for the presentation we got. So I was like distracted for the things that they were writing. Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation. We would like to see you tomorrow on the third presentation. We hope you enjoyed it.